Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk to you today about a study we did, really trying to disentangle two things that kept coming up in discussion yesterday: people's revealed preferences and stated or more ideal preferences on social media, and to try to understand how much of the amplification of divisiveness that we see on social media is caused by an equation between engagement and what people actually want or prefer more ideally. So this was work that I did with many collaborators at Berkeley, including Micah and Anka, who was here before. So in this work, we looked at, we did a study measuring effects of Twitter's engagement-based ranking algorithm on both user satisfaction, which you can think of as being users' more stated, reflective preferences for the content they see, and also some downstream socio-political outcomes that I'll talk about in a second. We did this experiment without any collaboration with Twitter, required no internal access. And the way we were able to do this is because Twitter exposes two types of feeds to users, right? You can either look at your feed through the engagement-based algorithm on the For You tab, or you can just view tweets from people you follow in the reverse chronological following tab. So what we did is we recruited about 800 Twitter users on Cloud Research Connect, and we did this over 2 weeks in February of this year. And for each of those users, we collected the top or the first 10 tweets in their chronological timeline and the first 10 tweets in their engagement-based timeline. So for each of these users, we basically have a counterfactual. What would you have seen as picked by the algorithm, and what would you have just seen from the chronological timeline? This allows us to conduct an actual true randomized experiment. So what we did is we then shuffled the order of these tweets and then surveyed users about each of these tweets in a random order. So this lets us measure the effect of the engagement-based timeline relative to the chronological baseline on various outcomes. So the first research question we had was, of course, how does Twitter's engagement-based algorithm affect downstream outcomes related to divisiveness, et cetera? What we found is that the engagement-based ranking amplified angry, hostile, partisan content that users, when they read, said made them feel worse about their political outgroup and better about their in-group. So the algorithm does indeed seem to be amplifying divisiveness, as we found through the experiment. But even if it is, one way that these algorithms are always justified is, well, they're just showing users what they want, you know? But we don't really know whether they're actually aligned with what users say they want. So we also just asked people, is this the kind of tweet that you would want to see on Twitter? And what we found is that when we looked at political tweets, users actually did not even prefer the tweets that the algorithm was sending them. So we have this thing where the political tweets picked by the algorithm are more divisive, and users say they don't want to see them. So this led to some exploratory analysis we wanted to do, looking at, well, what would happen if we just ranked by what people said they wanted instead of by engagement? How do we do that? Obviously, we just studied these two timelines because this is what Twitter exposes. This is what we had available to study. But we want to study the larger design space to see what alternatives we can come up with. And in particular, in this case, we'd like to study what the effects of a stated preference timeline would be. So the way we did this, the way we approximated this, is we did ask for those 20 tweets that we collected. We asked the user, do you want to see tweets like this? So at least for those 20 tweets, we have the user's evaluation of whether they value it or not. And so we can form an approximation of a stated preference timeline by just re-ranking those tweets based on what the users valued the most. So this is an approximation in the sense that a real platform would have access to many more tweets. But hopefully this still gives us an idea of what direction moving more towards stated preferences would lead to. And what we found is that the ranking by stated preferences amplified more happiness in terms of what was expressed in content and what readers felt, and led to less amplification of angry, hostile, partisan content. So what this suggests is that one reason that these algorithms are amplifying divisiveness is this gap between what users want on reflection and what the algorithms are optimizing for, which is engagement. So anything we can do to kind of close that gap might help these downstream outcomes. And I think it was mentioned yesterday that a lot of this is actually an algorithmic challenge of how to use these kinds of sparse survey signals. So just dropping some other work I had that tries to do that as well. Anyway, thank you so much, and here's a QR code to the paper.